Welcome to Introduction to Basic Statistics. Objectively, at the end of this presentation, we'll have an appreciation of statistics and its importance. Secondly, we're going to discuss the two areas of statistics and also the differences between these two areas. And lastly, we're going to discuss a bit about sampling and the different kinds or types of doing it. So let's begin. I'd like to start with giving you examples before we define statistics. So on the slide you have different images employing different methods of statistics. So that's the common thing about all the four images. So the first slide is something I grabbed from the first image, rather, is from Pulse Asia website. So stating a nationwide survey on COVID-19. It's dated February 2021, this year. On the next image, or in the next image, we have the 2020 census. So by Philippine Statistics Authority. The third one is figures pertaining to the percentage of colors or top colors used by brands in their logos. And lastly, year-on-year production of rice and yield per hectare. It's tons per hectare, and the area from 1950 to 1990. So statistics is a branch of applied mathematics that involves the collection, description, analysis, and inference of conclusions from quantitative data. So kung pabalikan natin yung previous slide, quantitative yung nature ng kanilang presentation or methods. Statisticians, or the people who do statistics, are particularly concerned with determining how to draw reliable conclusions about large groups and general phenomena from the observable characteristics of small samples that represent only a small portion of the large group or a limited number of instances of a general phenomenon, like the first image, the survey on COVID-19. Gumagamit lang tayo ng samples or sample para ma-reflect yung realidad ng population. Later we'll have some examples explaining further the nature of what statisticians do. So the structure of statistics. We have two areas, or statistics has two areas, namely descriptive statistics, which basically involves presenting, organizing, and summarizing data. And the second area is inferential statistics, where It's more on drawing conclusions about the population based on data observed in a sample. So just a bit about the process of data science. We first collect raw data, then data will be processed to come up with a clean data set, or it's more of a sorted data. So this will then be subjected to, the clean data set will be subjected to exploratory data analysis, after which it can be processed again, and the clean data set may be the basis for models and algorithms, and the same with what comes after exploratory data analysis. So from your models and algorithms, you have your data product, and you will communicate or visualize the report. So the data product will then be presented to the population, or can be used after communicating the visualized report, can be the basis for making decisions. So especially in the business world, statistics is used for making sound decisions, especially or considering available resources and capital, or options or alternatives. Now, data analysis processes has three major activities. So it starts with data collection and preparation. The sub-activities under that are first to collect data, second is to prepare your code book, then set up structure of data, enter data, and screen data for errors. The second activity is exploration of data. So here you'll have the first area we discussed previously, which is descriptive statistics and your graphs. Under analysis, the third activity is you get to explore a relationship between variables. We'll have a separate discussion on variables. And under analysis, we have the sub-activity, which is to compare groups. So we encountered the word code book. So what is a code book in research? A code book basically provides information on the structure, contents, and layout of a data file. So users are strongly encouraged to review the code book of a study before downloading the data or data files. These are also codes used to indicate non-response and missing data. You have exact questions and skip the exact questions and skip patterns used in a survey. Like the example shown here is a questionnaire. So you have age, so that's a specific number which doesn't need any code. For gender, you just have to choose 1 or 2, and that would be the code. 1 for male and 2 if it's female option. The year, this is also coded, also has assigned codes, which best describes your level in school. 1 for freshman, 2 for sophomore, 3 junior, 4 senior, 5 is post-baccalaureate, and 6 graduate student. And the same goes with org work. Each option would have an assigned number for easier coding or for easier entry in the code book. Now, what is a data set? So a data set is a collection of related sets of information that is composed of separate elements but can be manipulated as a unit by a computer. So on the right side, on the right part, you have also the definition. It's a much simpler definition of what a data set is. It's a collection of data with a defined structure. So describing table 2.1 entitled data set, you have 3 columns with 10 rows. So consisting of first column, which is a borrower ID, second is credit score, and third column is interest rate. So this structure is also sometimes called or referred to as a data frame. So we also have data analysis and descriptive statistics. So yung kanina nating pinakita na diagram, yung descriptive statistics ay papasok dun sa dalawang columns, namely data collection and preparation and exploration of data. So what is descriptive statistics? So these are numbers that are used to summarize and describe data. So descriptive statistics, the name tells us, are just descriptive. So they do not involve generalizing beyond the data at hand. So ano ba mga kasama na procedures, statistical tools? Andyan yung mean, yung median, yung mode, yung range, yung variance, at yung mga graphs na ginagamit natin. So let me give you an example of DS, or descriptive statistics. You have here 2 columns, 10 students. The first column shows student 1 to student 10 and their corresponding scores. So if we derive, or if we compute the mean, you'll get 70.2, standard error 5.05, median is 74.5, mode is 72, SD or standard deviation is 15.97, sample variance is 255. This is perhaps a relatively new word for you, kurtosis and skewness. We also have the range 45. The minimum range is 46. The minimum is 46, maximum is 91. The sum is 702, and the count is 10. Basically referring to the number of students subjected to descriptive statistics. Now, what is inferential statistics? It's basically a collection of methods for using sample data to make conclusions about a population. Yung mga survey, ang gamit ng survey ay samples. So defining the difference, or establishing the difference between population and sample. Population is the entire set of possible observations in which we are interested, and sample is a subset of the population from which information is actually collected. So, bakit may tinatawag na inferential statistics? Because data gathering is not always possible considering barriers such as time, accessibility, or cost. So, what we do is just gather information from a smaller subset to reflect the population. And this is known as the sample, which was defined just earlier. So, after sampling, pag-aaralan natin yung sample. And doon tayo gagawa or doon tayo mag-i-infer or make an inference out of the sample. So, mamaya pag-uusapan natin kung ano-ano yung klase ng sampling or sampling methods or techniques. Let's first have an example for inferential statistics. Survey background. This is from bicolstandard.com. So survey background is just describing how this particular survey was conducted. So let me read the first paragraph. The 2015 first quarter Naga City Poverty and Governance Public Opinion Poll used face-to-face interview of 400 representative samples randomly selected from voting age population of Naga City. So the error margin is plus or minus 4.9%. So this gives us an idea of how the survey was conducted. The sample size, which is 400, and where or what consists of the sample size. How was it done? Randomly. It was done randomly, and the samples came only from the voting age population here in Naga City, and the year is 2015. So in the second line or in the second paragraph, the survey was conducted from February 8 to March 8, 2015 by the Ateneo Student Researchers Pool, which consists of 21 student scholars of Ateneo de Naga University under the guidance of the Ateneo Social Science Research Center staff and funding from the University Research Council. So the study adopted the social weather station methodology and used its rating interpretation terminology. Here's another example. This is from World Bank. So here we have figures on how COVID-19 affected low-income Filipino families dated April 2020. So let's first discuss food insecurity. COVID-19 basically increased food insecurity, and this reflects reality. So this is a national survey. So 56% of families had less food on the table. So they're more prevalent in households with 3 or more children, and more prevalent in Visayas and Mindanao than in Luzon. So as for social protection, it was found out that rapid implementation of social protection programs mitigated the impact of the pandemic. So under that, we have quick distribution of SAP, or Social Amelioration Program, which amounted to 5,000 pesos if I can remember correctly. So this reduced food insecurity among Pantawid beneficiaries. Second, almost all families in the 4Ps versus less than 20% non-pantawid in the sample got the first tranche of the government's SAP benefits within 1 month after the pandemic was declared. So that was in March last year. So this is how we do, or these are examples of inferential statistics. Let's now establish the difference between descriptive and inferential statistics. So descriptive statistics works with a smaller data set, while inferential statistics works with a large data set, namely the population. Number 2, process. For descriptive statistics, the process involved, or the process is simpler to do, while inferential statistics, the process is more complex, as we have to decide on the best sampling techniques. Third, descriptive statistics results obtained represent the entire data set, while under inferential statistics, the results obtained represent a portion of the population, but can be used to deduce information or service basis about the entire population with some amount of uncertainty. And 4, lastly, descriptive statistics, the error involved is usually less, and inferential statistics, the error involved is usually more. We'll discuss in detail what the word error is referring to, or what the nature of statistical errors. So sa statistics laging may tinatawag na error. Sometimes it's called statistical discrepancies or statistical discrepancy. Makikita natin yan sa computation, for example, ng gross national product or gross national income, national accounts. So may figure lagi doon na lagay sa ilalim. It could be positive or negative value, and it's known as statistical discrepancy. Now, further, under inferential statistics, let's now go to populations and samples. What are the kinds of samples? We have complete sample. It is a set of objects from a parent population that includes all such objects that satisfy a set of well-defined selection criteria. For example, a complete sample of Australian men taller than 2 meters would consist of a list of every Australian male taller than 2 meters, but it wouldn't include German males or tall Australian females or people shorter than 2 million. So it's a complete sample. This example tells us what the nature of what a complete sample is. Now, we also have unbiased representative sample. So this is a set of objects chosen from a complete sample using a selection process that does not depend on the properties of the objects. For example, an unbiased sample of Australian men taller than 2 meters might consist of a randomly sampled subset of 1% of Australian males taller than 2 meters. But one chosen from the electoral register might not be unbiased, since, for example, males aged under 18 will not be on the electoral register. So the best way to avoid a biased or unrepresentative sample is to select randomly, or to select a random sample. And a random sample is a sample where each individual member of the population has a known non-zero chance of being selected as part of the sample. So what are the types of random samples? We have simple random samples, systematic samples, stratified random samples, and cluster random samples. So we will discuss these types of random samples in the next presentation. So what's important to remember from this slide is that we have to have unbiased samples. Why? Because unbiased samples actually increases the chances of reflecting the population, the reality of the population. So, mas reliable yung conclusion na gagawin natin kung sakali as compared to biased samples. So, we'll discuss the different sampling techniques, the methods involved in sampling, and we'll also discuss variables in detail in the next presentation. So we end here. I'll post the second presentation hopefully within the week. Thank you for listening.